Hello students, in our previous module we had discussed about the various form of energy and we had discussed one of the form of mechanical energy, that is your kinetic energy. Today in this module we will discuss about potential energy of an object. Now the basic question is that what is the difference between kinetic energy and potential energy? As we had already discussed, that when an object is moving, that means it is under motion, it has certain velocity, the energy possessed by that object will be the kinetic energy. Then what is potential energy? When we do some amount of work in an object, then as we know, due to the work done, some amount of energy get transferred into that object. So when the energy that has been transferred into that object due to the work done has not caused the change in the velocity of that object, that means the energy gets stored inside that object, then in that instance we say that the energy possessed by that object is nothing but the potential energy. So that's the only difference. When we do a work on object, if the work brings the change in the velocity of an object, we call that energy possessed by the object as kinetic energy. And if you do the work on an object but that work has not brought any change in the velocity of that object, then we say that the energy possessed by that object is potential energy. For example, in our day to day life, you must have observed a small kid playing with a car. As you know, when the boys try to wind the key before putting it on the floor, so there is a spring inside it. So when we wind it, that means, or the boy winds that key, we are doing some kind of work, some amount of work has been done on that spring. So the due to the work done, the spring acquires some kind of energy, some amount of energy. So the kind of energy that is acquired by that spring is nothing but the potential energy. Another situation, if you take, you must have played with a rubber band. So when you try to stretch a rubber band, what you do? You apply some kind of force, that means a work is done on that rubber band. So due to the work done, the rubber acquires an amount of energy inside it, and the moment you release that, the rubber comes back to its initial position. That means the energy which was stored inside that rubber, that brings that rubber into its initial shape. So we can say that whenever we do some kind of work on an object but there is no change in the velocity of that object, the energy which is stored inside it is nothing but your potential energy. Here at this point, we will perform an activity in order to understand what is potential energy. So observe it. I am holding a sling. You must have seen it in the physics lab. So initially, if you see, the sling is at rest. Now what I am trying to do is I am doing some kind of work on it, means I am applying a force on it and I am trying to stretch it. So the moment I am stretching it, due to the work done, the sling acquires a energy inside it, and as there is no velocity, there is no change in the position of that spring, that is your sling, the energy possessed by it is called as the potential energy. So the moment I release it, it comes back to its initial position. So that's what we call it as the potential energy possessed by this sling. I hope, dear students, you understood what is potential energy. Now In order to understand potential energy and gravitational potential energy of an object, let's have a look at a video.
Is as stored energy that is ready or has the potential to do. Energy is the capacity to do any work. Another way to think of it is as stored energy that is ready or has the potential to do work. Gravitational potential energy is the energy that's within an object when it is moved against a gravitational force. If an object is raised above the ground, it will acquire potential energy. The object's gravitational potential energy will depend on its weight as well as how high it is above a surface. A heavier object will have more gravitational potential energy. Consider a large bowling ball and a small baseball that are dropped into identical buckets of water from the same height. The larger ball will cause more water to splash out of the bucket than the smaller baseball. An object's potential energy will increase when there is an increase in its height above a surface. Now imagine that we have two balls of the same size being dropped into identical buckets of water. The one being dropped from the higher point will possess more gravitational potential energy, and so will do more work, creating a bigger splash. Water stored behind a dam or at the top of a waterfall has gravitational potential energy.
So, dear students, as you saw in the video, the gravitational potential energy increases as the height of the object increases. So, the vertical height increases, the potential energy of that object also increases. Now, let's talk about the potential energy acquired by an object when it is raised to a certain height. So, here if you see, a player is trying to throw a javelin, and as the player has lifted that javelin to a certain height, we say that it has acquired some kind of energy, because while lifting that javelin, work has been done against the gravitational pull. Similarly, if you see at the catapult, when you pull it backward, we do certain kind of work, and that work gets converted into energy and gets stored in the catapult in the form of your potential energy. And the moment you release that rubber, it pushes that stone with a certain amount of velocity. That means the rubber, due to its potential energy, does some work on the stone. So, this is how we can understand about potential energy. So, if you go for the definition of your potential energy, you can see the energy gets stored due to the work done on the object is called as your potential energy. The energy transferred to an object is stored as potential energy if it is not used to cause a change in the velocity or speed of the object. So, that is what we had understood from that activity also. Unless and until there is any change in the velocity or speed of that object due to the work done on it, the energy possessed by it will be the potential energy. Now, the potential energy possessed by the object can be defined as the energy present in it by the virtue of its position or configuration. So, the position at which that object is there or the configuration of that object gives us the idea about its potential energy. Now, dear students, we will try to find out an expression for the energy acquired by an object when it is raised to a certain height. So, that is what we call it as gravitational potential energy. because when we are raising an object to a certain height above the ground, we were doing some kind of work against the gravitational pull or gravity. So, the energy that will be acquired while doing a work against the gravity, we call it as gravitational potential energy. So, let us find out the expression for it. For that, let us consider a situation. Suppose a ball is lying on a table and we are doing some work on that ball and it is raised to a height of h. In this situation, let us find out the energy possessed by that ball when it is raised to a height of h, when the work done is against the gravity. So, we will consider the object mass as m. Let it be raised to a height of h from the ground. A force is required to do this. So, we know the minimum force required to raise the object is equal to the weight of the object, which is nothing but mass into acceleration due to gravity, that is mg, and let the work done on that object against the gravity be denoted by w. So, in that case, how we will find out the expression for work done and the expression for the energy. So, let us have a look. So, let us indicate it by w, which is equal to force multiplied by the displacement. So, the force will assume the force required to lift that object from the ground to the height h. So, that is nothing but mg, and the displacement is nothing but the height h itself from the table or from the ground to that particular height. So, we will denote it by h. So, that will give us w is equal to mgh, or we can represent, because this is the work done in order to raise that object from the ground to that particular height. That means the work done through that displacement h. So, the potential energy will be EP will be nothing but the work done mgh. So, this is the expression for the potential energy when an object is raised to a certain height. Now, here a question arises in mind. As you saw in that animation, that the ball is raised from point A to a point B in a vertical direction. Now, if we take that ball in a different path, instead of going in a straight path, if we deviate the path something like this, if you observe this animation, first it went the straight, then it makes a zigzag path and reaches the final height. Will the potential energy change because of the change in the path through which the ball has moved and reached a height? The answer is no. The potential energy will always depend on the vertical distance. That means from ground level to the vertical height. What is the difference? That will decide the potential energy or increase in the potential energy of that object, irrespective of the path taken. It does not depend on the path which has been followed by that object to reach that particular height. So, I hope you understood this. Now, let us try to solve some numerical associated with your potential energy or expression for the potential energy. So, one such question is in front of you. Find the energy possessed by an object of mass 10 kg when it is at a height of 6 meter above the ground, given that the acceleration due to gravity, that is g, we will consider as 9.8 meter per second square. Now, we have already discussed about the expression for the potential energy. So, when it is at 6 meter height, we will find out the work done, and that work done will give us the potential energy possessed by the object. So, let us see how we can solve it. So, here what we will do, we will use the expression EP stands for your potential energy will be is equal to mgh. Here the mass of the object has been given as 10 kg multiplied by acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meter per second square, and the height given to us is a 6 meter. And if you solve it, we will get a value of 588 joule. That means an amount of 588 joule potential energy is possessed by that object when it is raised to a height of 6 meter. I hope you understood this part. Now, dear students, we will take another example, another numerical, so that we can understand this concept, this application with a much more clarity. So, here is the question in front of you. An object of mass 12 kg is at a certain height above the ground. If the potential energy of the object is 480 joule, find the height at which the object is with respect to the ground. So, here the potential energy has already given to us, the mass is given to us. We have to find out the height at which the energy, that potential energy will be equal to 480 joule. So, here again we will use the same expression EP is equal to mgh, and we will solve the problem. So, let us look at the solution. So, the solution will be, here we can write it as EP is equal to mgh. The h we need to find out. Mass is given to us, mass is given as 12 kg, and the EP, that is your potential energy, is given to us as 480 joule, and the acceleration due to gravity is, we will consider it as 10 meter per second square as for the question. So, we will substitute this value. So, after we substitute these values, 480 joule will be is equal to 12 kg multiplied by 10 meter per second square multiplied by h, which is the height, and if we solve it, h will be is equal to 480 divided by 120. Height will be nothing but that unit will be meter. So, if you see, the answer will come it as 4 meter. That means the result shows us, if an object of mass 12 kilogram is raised to a height of 4 meter, then the work done against the gravity will get transferred as the potential energy in that object, and the value will be 480 joule. My dear students, today we will conclude our lesson with this, but before that we will solve another numericals related to your gravitational potential energy. So, here is the question in front of you. So, the question given to you is, an object of mass 10 kg is lifted 8 meter above the ground. The acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meter per second square. What is the gravitational potential energy of the object? The options given to you: 7840 joule, 78.4 joule, 784 joule, or 7.84 joule. So here we can easily solve this by applying the formula potential energy is equal to mgh. The values are given to you. So you try what will be the answer. So here is the answer in front of you. Now if you substitute all these values, you will get the option as 784 joule. Mass is given 10 kg. Acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meter per second square. Height is 8 meter. So if you substitute all these values, the answer you will get is 784 joule. So dear students, I hope you understood what is potential energy, what is gravitational potential energy, and how we can solve different type of numericals related to it. In our next class, we will discuss about the conservation of energy and the rate of doing work, that is your power. So till then, read your NCERT textbook, practice all these numericals given in the book. Take care of yourself. Thank you.